Now, I'm delighted to say that joining me for reaction to this massive story, this bombshell on a Friday night that not many saw coming, we have Boris Johnson's biographer, Tom Bower, the author of The Gambler, and we'll catch up with Katherine Forster, our political correspondent, in just a moment. Tom, going back to what you said earlier, could this be an example of Johnson's opportunism?
Yes, absolutely. There's a plan. I mean, there's no doubt that he has been heavily censured by the committee, and it was a stitch-up from the beginning because Harriet Harman, the chairman, clearly wanted him punished, and she made no secret of that, and nor did Bernard Jenkins, the Tory MP. But there we are. He's now got what many predicted was going to happen, and he is taking the horns, holding the horns and the bull by the horns, because he's absolutely determined that he's going to come out of this on the front foot. My guess is that he will probably stand for Parliament for Henley, because that's a safe seat. But in the meantime, he will try to agitate to prove himself right. And his real problem is that he doesn't have round him the sort of people to give him good advice. And he needs a team. He needs to rebuild his team. And that's going to have to happen in the next few months.
Tom, stay with us, if you will. I'm very grateful for your time on a Friday night. I think you'll agree that this massive story is worthy of further analysis. So Tom Bower in just a moment. But let's go straight now to our political correspondent, Katherine Forster. Katherine, did many see this coming?
No, frankly. I think when we knew yesterday that the Privileges Committee report had been passed to Boris Johnson, obviously we knew he had 2 weeks to respond. But I suspect that the Conservative Party certainly would have hoped that the recommended suspension, if there was one, would be less than 10 days, because what in fact they have recommended, more than 10 days in a by-election, is going now to create absolute chaos. And although Boris Johnson has resigned as an MP with immediate effect, there will be a by-election in Uxbridge and South Ruislip. This is going to create a whole world of pain for Rishi Sunak, because what it does is it reopens all this psychodrama and the Conservative Party basically eating itself alive that we've seen over the last year or so. So Rishi Sunak began the day hoping to avoid by-elections with a resignation honours list, etc. The end of the day, facing two by-elections, the Lib Dems think they can take Nadine Dorris's seat. Labour think that they can take Boris Johnson's seat. And also, of course, Boris Johnson is doing the absolute opposite of going quietly. He is going down and pretty much trying to take a lot of people with him. I mean, he says we're very sad to be leaving Parliament, at least for now. So straight away, the indication that this may be just a temporary setback, a temporary stepping back from politics. He could be coming back, just as he did when he actually resigned, hinted at a return, and then goes on to say, you know, that he is bewildered and appalled. He says he's been forced out anti-democratically. So I think now the very sort of bit of a lid that Rishi Sunak has managed to keep on the various warring factions within the Conservative Party, I suspect this is all going to come out now, pouring forth in a very unpleasant way. And I would imagine that Keir Starmer is going to be very, very pleased watching this.
Yes, Katherine, stay with us. We can bring Tom Bower back, Boris Johnson's biographer. Tom, what do you make of the tone of Boris Johnson's statement? Is that anger sincere or confected for political ends?
Oh, I think it's sincere. I mean, he is absolutely appalled. He didn't think that he was going to be forced out by a punishment of over 10 days. But he should have listened more carefully to what the committee was saying. I mean, he had no friends on that committee. They were determined to punish him and punish him very brutally. The only difference I would take from your political editor is this, that I don't think that the Tory party is going to react in such a way to divide itself over this. I think they see in this a chance to put Partygate and all the horrors of that behind them, because the main victim or the main proponent of Partygate is out of the Commons. He's out of politics until the next general election. So there is a chance, in my view, that this could be a blessing in disguise. Boris is not going to be a player in the Commons for the foreseeable future, and his return will depend on Central Office approving him as an alternative candidate when it comes to Henley. And there aren't, with Nadine Dorries is gone, and Jacob Rees-Mogg, I don't think he'll be very vocal in opposing Rishi. There's a chance that he'll be able to get over it by Monday.
Katherine, does this departure of Boris Johnson from the House of Commons absolve him of any ongoing punishment from the Privileges Committee? Does this zero out the scoreboard?
Well, I suppose it does, because he's taken matters into his own hands. I mean, they could have suspended him for 10 days.
Now, we've just lost the line to Katherine Forster there. Now, Tom, let me come back to you whilst we reconnect with Katherine. Can we talk about Boris Johnson's future? If the Conservatives collapse at the next election, but Boris wins an alternative seat, such as Henley, is there a conceivable path for him back to number 10?
Absolutely, yes. And I think that must be part of his thinking, that if the Tories lose at the end of next year, that he would perhaps win in Henley and return as the prospective leader of the opposition, having finished his book as well. So in all of this, there is a very selfish, narcissistic calculation that he has nothing to lose by getting out now and not prolonging the agony. And there is a view of that, of course, but that's the problem with this scenario. It assumes that the Labour Party is going to win with a large majority. And there are many people who think the Tories do have a chance of getting at least in with one seat majority or a hung parliament, and nothing is fixed. So he is taking a huge gamble. He is assuming a Tory defeat and that he will return as the alternative, the man to rebuild the party for the second time, just as some of his predecessors in politics have done.
Katherine Forster, if Boris Johnson were to win an alternative seat and Rishi Sunak loses the next election, would he be a shoo-in to lead the Tories in opposition? Would he be the first choice? Would he do a Donald Trump in terms of the Republican Party and be the obvious candidate?
Well, many people would think it's unthinkable, but one thing you can say with Boris Johnson is never, never underestimate Boris Johnson and never, ever write him off, because he has incredible political powers, things that happen that you would have undone anybody else. He bounces back again and again and again. And of course, as we know, Boris Johnson will calculate what Boris Johnson thinks is best for Boris Johnson. Now, it may well be, if the Conservative Party lose the next election, that Rishi Sunak is out. It is conceivable, I think, that they could turn back to Boris Johnson, just as you've mentioned him. I was talking only this morning about both President Biden and Rishi Sunak have these blonde, predecessors who grab all the headlines and make lots of trouble. But of course, when Donald Trump went, it seemed inconceivable that he might be re-elected, especially with the Capitol riots on January the 6th. And yet here we are, despite the criminal charges being brought against him, he is the favourite. So, yeah, I can see Boris Johnson coming back, but certainly this won't be improving the Conservatives' chances of winning at the next election.
Yes, not for the first time. Boris Johnson and Donald Trump's career mirror themselves. Katherine Forster, thank you so much for jumping on the call. We'll catch up shortly. My brilliant GB News colleague, political correspondent Katherine Forster. And listen, Tom Bauer, I owe you a pint. Thank you so much for your XL contribution to the show tonight.